making systems, making things that are self-documenting, making things that deal with perception.
Making things that you can't predict.
And sharing those with as many people as possible. If you can do a thought experiment and think about how something might be and you can see how it might be in your head, it's probably not that interesting an idea. But if you can ask yourself a question that the only way of finding out how it's going to be is by doing it, that's probably something that's quite powerful, and that's what Hellicar Lewis is.
Yeah.
It's strange to think how we got to this from totally disparate backgrounds of professional skateboarding in mathematics and computer science, but then we've arrived at the same place, and I think that's why it works. We like to investigate play in our work because we think it's a very powerful place to start from. I think one of the things that got me really excited initially about working with Pete was his background in professional skateboarding, and particularly what it is to be a good skateboarder and how he characterised to me what it felt like to be in the moment when skating.
The thing with play is that if it's good, you're not thinking about it, you're just completely consumed. It's a kind of release for people.
Yeah.
You know, it's a moment where you don't have to think about it at all, and you're just there and you're playing and do you know what I mean? And I think that's a really nice gift to be able to give to somebody else.
That space where anything is possible, which is play, is the most exciting space to be, and that's where we want to be.
Technology obviously plays a major part in our work, but I think it's the ideas and the systems that we create that provide the ability to put somebody in the moment.
Everything is technology, right? That people don't really consider that. Everyone has this kind of perception of, you know, the cheesy flashing LEDs and everything like that.
Gutenberg was a technologist.
Gutenberg was a hacker. Yeah. Leonardo da Vinci was a hacker.
I think the thing is, as well, with making your own tools is that if you want to do something and the tool doesn't exist, you don't want to wait around for somebody else to make it. You know what you need.
The prevalence of these digital tools, like Photoshop and Final Cut Pro and all these they're great, they're amazing tools, they're fantastic. But unless you're careful, those devices can end up owning you or affecting your own creativity. And that's not to say we don't use all of those tools all the time in our own work, but we're always aware of their limitations. I would trust a carpenter that could or had made all his own tools, even if he didn't use them every day. Just that total knowledge that you get from having to construct your own tool, it's unparalleled. It's the only way to get that. Divide by Zero was a collaboration between us, a great choreographer called Nina, and a really amazing dancer called Katerina. The whole project came around because Nina wanted to use hypnotherapy to delve into the innermost desires and dreams of dancers. It was almost as if she came to us with a system, and that immediately made our ears prick up because, well, that's quite similar to our approach.
And she had a crazy idea, so it's always nice to work with a mentalist.
Yeah, and when we say we like to make systems, not narratives, that's not to say that it isn't an art-directed, considered, beautiful thing,
well, that's the thing,
but it's exciting, something that can change.
Yeah, it's the way that people navigate the systems that is intriguing.
We're always shocked when you go and see an interactive installation or some piece and there's an instruction manual next to it, or a little piece of paper or something like that that says you should do this or try to do this. We don't like to make things where you could do anything wrong. One of the things that I really learned from my time when I was working at United Visual Artists was, for instance, on the Massive Attack tour, when we were doing audio responsive software and a lot of audio responsive visuals, that something in the context of a screen could be not necessarily that interesting. So a screen that gets brighter if you shout louder. But then if you transport that into the context of a 10,000 person gig with everyone jumping around, and when the lead singer points the microphone at the crowd, the light goes crazy, and then the band goes a bit more crazy, and then it makes this feedback loop happen. If we can make that happen with our work, it's always exciting to see that. Quite often work, as you say, Pete, is a full stop. and to make something where you feel you can be part of something, I think it's a very powerful thing. There's something that we always say about the virtual world, whatever that quite means, is we've never cried in front of a website, and it's kind of a flippant thing to say, but it's not really an emotionally affecting place because it's so mediated, because it's going through a screen, and that's kind of a built-in perceptual thing that we have. So we think the real world is the best place to make memories, and that's why we work in the real world with our work. But that's not to say that the virtual world doesn't have a lot of possibilities as well, which is that it's a place completely without any kind of physical constraint. So it's interesting when you can have something that maybe was inspired by the physical world that you then take into the virtual world and then expose that again in the real world. So a good example of that would be our feedback installation that we did at the Roundhouse with our great friend Todd Vanderlyn. It was part of this circus festival that happened at the Roundhouse, and they came to us initially and said, can you do something that uses the skills of one of the performers? And they were all so good. We just felt embarrassed. We didn't want to do, you know, like virtual juggling or something like that. So we tried to think, well, if we were in the circus, what would we be doing? So we took a real world thing and then took it into the virtual world by having this idea of being able to throw pixels almost, or to be able to affect yourself in these kind of magical mirror forms, or these responsive mirrors. And then put that back into the real world and allowed people to become performers in front of it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the virtual and real worlds can blend or go backwards and forwards, but we like to always end up back in the real world. I think we've just scratched the surface of it. There's so much more to come, and we want to be doing it for a long time. That's one of the reasons why we do open source everything that we do, is because we don't want to be known as the projection mapping guys or the augmented reality guys or insert buzzword here. We want to be doing this for decades to come.